what's up? Sharon here, bringing you the very first guide video on this YouTube channel. If you don't know me, welcome to my channel. As I said, my name is Sharon, and I have over 7K hours on Dead by Daylight. Yes, I am trying to semi-flex on you. Why? Because that's the only thing I've achieved in my life, okay? 7K hours on DBD. I've achieved nothing else. Okay, that's a joke. I've achieved a lot, but yeah, I'm excited to get this video started. I hope you will like my future content. I hope you like this content as well. Why am I talking about future content when this content has to come out first and be liked? Before we get into today's video, I want to quickly thank you all so much for all the support that you've been giving on the latest video, the first video of this channel, which was the Stealth Duke Montards video. It was really fun seeing all my clips come together, but it was even more fun to see everyone so excited about the video, and I'm just really thankful that my community and maybe even already strangers of YouTube came to visit the video and came to look at it. It means a lot. Thank you so much for that support. Now let's get started with the video. Alrighty, now in this video we will be discussing three things. One, what is free genning, which is me gonna be explaining what it is so you get a better understanding of what free genning is. Two, tips and tricks to avoid free genning. And three, what to do if you did get free genned. Before I'm gonna get started with number one, what is free genning, I quickly want to get this out of the way. You probably can hear that I pronounce the number free really weirdly. If you don't know me, I'm from the Netherlands. I'm non-native English. So yeah, there's certain words and things that I pronounce weird, and all I can say is suck it up, buttercup, because that's just gonna happen. I can't do anything about it. Can't change it. It's my charm or my curse, whatever you fancy. And yeah, hopefully it won't annoy you too much, but if it does, then alas, it be like a dance. All right, let's get started. Number one, what is free genning? Free genning basically means that the killer is patrolling three specific generators that are very close to each other on the map and doing nothing but just rotating between those three generators. They will smack and kick survivors off those generators. They will kick the generator to regress them if there's any progression, and that's pretty much all they do. They rotate between those three generators. When a free gen is active, survivors will struggle getting a generator done, if the killer plays it correctly, that is. Sometimes killers stray from the goal, sometimes killers get distracted, sometimes survivors are just really good at using their time efficiently. But typically, if a killer is good at free genning, you will struggle getting a generator up. Now, I have personally been part of these games where the entire game went amazingly, and then at the end, where there's a free gen active, bam, entire game is done. Killer wins, gets a 4K, and you just lose the entire game of that. It sucks. It really does. No matter how well the game went before, the game can completely turn around with a free gen if you're not careful enough and if you don't do the correct thing during a free gen, which I will explain later in the video. Even if you finally manage to get yourself out of the free gen by doing a generator, it's just been a very frustrating process most of the time. At least that's how I feel. Whenever I get myself out of a free gen, I'm just sick of it. I'm annoyed. It triggers me. You just waste so much time that was so unnecessary if you just know how to avoid a free gen. Before heading to the second part of the video, which is the tips and tricks part, I quickly want to get rid of a misconception people tend to have when it comes to free genning. People tend to think that free genning can only happen when there's one generator left in the game to do, aka free generators left on the entire map. This is simply not true. Whilst I do admit that 98% of the times when you get free gen, it is indeed when there's only one gen left to do, there are other moments you can get free gen in, no matter what the game state is that you're in. Before you start rage typing, commenting, demanding where I get those statistics from, they're obviously not real. I made it up. I made the number up. Sue me. That's fine by me. I obviously based the number to my own experiences and knowledge, and I don't often get free gen in other game states apart from when there's only one generator left to do. Realistically speaking, because I'm not part of other games apart from my own, the number is probably way lower. And I could have picked a cool number, like 69. But that would mean that I'm immature, and I'm not immature. Or am I? Find out in the next episode. No, I'm joking. Regardless, it doesn't happen often, but I still think it's important to know. Sometimes you get free gen from the very start of the game, especially killers like Hag, Trapper, and Doctor. Those have all great zoning potentials to one specific side of the map, which often leads them to do that. It can happen, and even if it's not that killer, it can happen with any killer. There's just some killers who have adapted that playstyle, and for whatever forsaken reason, they like playing like that. Don't ask me why. I would find it very boring waiting until all the generators get done and then free gen yourself. But hey, to each their own, everyone has their preference. Before you ask, Sharon, why are you telling us this? I'm telling you this because I feel like it's important to know knowledge is key in this game, and when killers tend to free gen themselves at the very beginning, I've noticed that they're a little bit more chill when it comes to being free gened. Like, they don't stray away from a chase as often. They're not so obsessed with the generators yet. So you still do have a chance of fixing a generator within that free gen, breaking the free gen. It's important to know that because sometimes it can save the entire game by breaking that free gen that the killers set up themselves. So I figured, why not enlighten y'all and give you the information so if it does happen, you know what to do, you know what you can do, and you know what to look out for. Alright, on to the next part of the video, which is number 2, tips and tricks. I got 2.5 tips and tricks for you that will help you to stop free genning yourself. Now you will understand later in the video why I'm saying and a half. I will explain that later. Tip and trick number 1. Avoid doing corner generators. At the very beginning of the game, you want to avoid doing corner generators. Whilst I do realize that some survivor spawns are in corners, and corner generators are really safe to do, they can be very damaging to the game state. Now you might wonder why. The answer is actually quite simple, yet understandable if you haven't thought about it prior to this video. I've recorded an in-game video showing you what I mean. As you can see, I'm pointing towards the corner generator, and then I start running around it. There are great loops and pallets around this corner generator. You doing this corner generator might mean that you will never get to use those pallets and loops. Some killers, not all the killers, will completely ignore this side of the map from now on because there are no generators, and generators equals pressure. Some killers will of course chase you regardless of where it is, but a lot of killers will leave you because they realize you're drawing them away from the objective. The only reason I would advise doing a corner gen is when you spawn with a fellow survivor. The survivor will more than likely do the gen anyways, so you might as well get on it to do it quickly. You being as time efficient as you can be. Normally, how quicker you get the gens done, how better. However, doing that corner gen forces you to understand how to play the next part of the gen states, meaning that whatever generator's on the same side as the corner generator, you can absolutely not do. If you do the generator, you're making it 10 times harder on yourself and have a bigger chance of free genning yourself. What I always recommend is when you spawn in a corner with a fellow survivor, go look around the corner and see if there's a generator nearby. Often that is the case. If that is the case, you can wave towards your fellow survivor in the corner and try to bring them towards the other generator. Of course, you're wasting a little bit of time relocating to the generator, but you make up for it by doing the generator quicker because you're on the generator with 2 people. And more importantly, you're still saving that corner generator for the late game. Please do know that if you have brought the survivor away from the corner generator, that you need to make sure they stay off that corner generator even after you fix that generator that you've done together. Sometimes the survivor, if you don't pay attention to them, they will just slip back in the corner generator and then you have screwed yourself over. Tip and trick number 2. Don't do elevated generators. In tip number 1, we discussed that doing corner generators makes a playfield smaller for a killer, which benefits them. Generators that are on a different level of the map kinda do the same. The main importance in a DBD game for both survivors and killers is time. You have to be efficient and waste as little time as you can. A survivor doing a generator on a different level than the ground level makes it so the killer doesn't have to waste their time by going up and down stairs, checking upon that generator. In the late game, when you have 3 generators left and 1 gen left to fix, having a generator that's on a different level than the ground floor is basically your heaven generator. Either the killer completely ignores it because A, they don't want to bother going all the way up there, or B, is being kept busy by the other survivors or the other two gens. This basically means that the different level generator is a free generator for you. The other option is that the killer does patrol that generator, but they waste so much time checking upon that generator, which means it's easier for the survivors that are on the ground floor generators to apply pressure onto those generators. Now you might wonder, what if you spawn with other survivors around the elevated generator? In tip number 1, we discussed that it's better to just do that generator or lure the survivor away from that generator to another generator. The same rules kind of apply to tip number 2. I would say it's really map dependent. If you're on an outside map like Asylum or Martyr's Dwelling, you should always leave that elevated generator and encourage the fellow survivors to do the same, to move on to a different one. It's pretty easy to find generators on outside maps, so you won't have a hard time and you won't lose all too much time. Now, on an inside map, it's a bit different. Normally, it's harder to find a generator on the inside maps, therefore leaving that generator when you spawn with others might be a very risky mistake that you can do. In case you don't find a generator soon enough with others, you will not only be wasting your own time, other people's time too, and the killer will already have way more pressure than you guys will have in the game. The only inside map that I would always say don't do it, is the single upstairs generator in Hawkins. That one you should absolutely leave until the end, but then again, that map is gonna disappear soon in November 2021. So if you're watching this video after that time frame, that information is kind of useless. And now on to the last tip that I have for y'all. Tip number 3, always do the middle generator. Remember when I mentioned at the very beginning that I have 2.5 tricks to share? Yeah, this is the half trick, because this requires you to be a little bit more ballsy, brave, and or an experienced survivor. If you're not, then that's completely fine. You can still stick to number 1 and 2. That will help you plenty with not free-genning yourself. If you're curious as to why tip number 3 is more for the ballsy experienced survivor, it's because the middle generator is typically very high in traffic. The killer will use the middle gen to go from one side of the map to the other side, and so will the survivor. And survivors also use it when they're getting chased by the killer and they want to loop him somewhere else. Keep in mind that middle generators are also often not stacked with great loops like jungle gyms or good looping pallets. This is not always the case. Like sometimes there are. Like some middle generators have great middle buildings, but you need to know how to use the middle buildings, and if you're newer to the game, you typically don't. Now to explain as to why you should always do the middle generator first, except, of course, what we covered in number 2, don't do the elevated generators. If the middle gen, by any chance, is an elevated generator, such as on Martyr's Dwelling, Asylum, and probably more maps, you should always keep that generator up, of course. But if it's just a ground level generator in the middle, such as on Ormond, it's best to do that first. Why? Because you doing the middle generator splits up the map in 2 halves, making it more difficult for the killer because he has to go further distances to check up on his generators, and it's harder for him to get a free gen going. After you have done the middle generator, that's where you have to start focusing on where your generators are located on each side of the map. Gen spawns by default can be quite whack. Sometimes there are only 2 generators on the left side, whilst there are 4 generators on the right side. And sometimes, and this is very rarely, but it has happened before, and it might happen to you too, sometimes there are going to be 5 generators on one side of the map and only 1 generator on the left side. You're gonna have to counter that. This is something you're gonna have to check up on and work with as the game goes on. Keep in mind that you're not the only survivor on the map. So knowing where your fellow teammates are doing generators can help you determine where you need to do a generator. For example, if all your teammates are doing generators on the left, to keep up with the pressure that the left side is producing, you will have to go to the right to make up for that. Because if your teammates do all the generators on the left, then your right side is more than likely gonna be free-gen, which you don't want. Now these are all the tips and tricks I can give you to not free-gen yourself, or to try not to at least. I hope it helps, I hope it makes you free-gen yourself less, and I hope you have to experience it less. Now we shall move on to the last bit of the guide, which is number 3, what to do when you are free-gen. There's only one thing that will make you win a free gen situation as a survivor. And I know that people that are listening right now are screaming in their head, please don't say it, please don't say it. But yes, I'm gonna say it. I'm so sorry, but the only way you get yourself out of a free gen situation is teamwork. Now, this is a painful reality when you're a solo queue survivor as myself. Teamwork kind of goes out of the window when you're a solo queue survivor, but it can happen, and you should always try regardless of whether you're a solo queue survivor or not. Now, if you wanna get yourself out of a free gen situation, you're gonna have to make sure that each survivor divides their attention onto different generators. Preferably, you would want to have 2 survivors on one gen and the other 2 on separate generators by themselves. Depending, of course, how far the generators are progressed on. If 2 generators both have quite a bit of progression, you're better on making it a 2-on-2 so the progression goes faster. But if they're newer generators that don't have much progression or nothing at all, it's better to keep it on 2, 1, and 1. Now, there's only one benefit to being free gens. When a killer is coming to you to check up on your generator that you've been working on, you can run towards the other side of the map that have no generators left. That map is pretty much useless for the killer, and 9 out of 10 times the killer won't chase you there and go straight back to your generator to kick it and to patrol the other generators. This gives you a full chance to reset, heal yourself, and join back on the generators, helping your team complete a generator. What you always should try to avoid is running into the direction of the generators when you're being chased by the killer, because this gives the killer vision over the other generators, pressure over the other generators, and if you get hooked in between a free gen, depending on how tight that free gen is, that might be you dead on hook, because he will just camp you alongside with the other generators. Alrighty then, that pretty much sums up everything that I have for you. I've taught you what free genning is, I've given you some tips and tricks on how to not free gen yourself, and I've given you some sort of idea on how to deal when you do get free gens. I got nothing else, but knowing me and knowing how forgetful I am and how stressed I've been making this video, I've probably forgot some things, like certain tricks, certain tips, certain explanations, and for that, I apologize. If you're watching the video and you've noticed that I'm missing something, feel free to comment down below. If there's something that isn't clear to you and you're still not completely getting it, which I really hope is not the case, but if it is the case, feel free to comment down below as well, and I will try my best to explain it to you in the comment section. Now, this is the end of the video, and before I'm gonna be ending, I want to thank y'all so much for watching the video. If you watched it in one go, you're a big trooper. Thank you so much. If you watched it with breaks in between, I totally get that too. Thank you as well for sticking with me. Thank you so much for the support. I'm still new to YouTube. I'm still new to recording. I'm still new to guides. I got no clue what I'm doing. I'm just trying my best, and I sincerely hope this video, whilst it might be a little bit clumsy and, it could have done better, I truly hope it serves its purpose. Before I'm gonna go, I'm gonna be asking you to do the things that every YouTuber asks you to do. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And until next time, bye!